I want to talk about the richness of the characters, but I just want to talk about joys of motherhood because you've mentioned it at least 2 interviews. Interestingly enough, you are one of 3 people that made me finally read The Joys of Motherhood last year.
Oh, really?
Yes. I'd never read it. I've just never had Buche Mecheta in my orbit, even though I'm an African fiction, person.
Yeah.
And so you said it in an interview. Somebody else said in an interview. I'm like, Chude, go and read this book. And The Joys of, when I read it, I was stunned, and I think that's why I didn't want to read this. Because I'm like, it hits me, it punched me. It was like reading, I think, Efuru or so. It just hits me, and I just, like, it made me sad.
Yeah, it's very sad.
For a few days. And not a useless, melodramatic sadness, just a quiet sadness. Why has The Joys of Motherhood stood out so powerfully for you as a writer?
I think, because we're in this sort of, again, one of the things that happened to me when I went to get my master's, you're living in this place with a lot of writers, and there's this sense in which you begin to think of storytelling as this clinical thing, is your profession, is yes, which is, it's part of that, but it's that period kind of took away the magic of literature for me, which is I've always thought of literature as magical. And then when I think of The Joys of Motherhood and the experience I had while reading that book, I'm like, actually, literature is really magical, because what that book did for me as a 13-year-old who was reading it was, yes, I was privy to the experiences of the women in my life, but what that book did was to sort of synthesize those experiences into a singular action. And I could just see cause and effect play out in real time. And I was like, oh, this is the effect of what our society does to people. This is how it affects people. And I could actually see it in the reality of the people around me. And I was like, if literature can do that to me, and so even long before I knew about the word feminism, which of course I knew, when I was listening to Chimamanda and stuff, this was because I had read this book before I knew of Chimamanda's work. So long before I knew that word, feminism, I already had an experience of perhaps some kind of empathy, for what I consider the female situation, right? And so that book for me, there are not many books like that, that sort of strike at the heart of a person and say, hey, you have to actually look at the world,
Yeah.